Next up, we have Henry Berzinia and Giselle Clark of Columbus McKinnon. During CM's presentation, please post your questions by using the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window. And now I'd like to turn it over to Columbus McKinnon.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending. I'd like to thank AWRF for inviting us out to attend this as well. So I just want to make sure, can everybody see my screen?
We can.
Okay, beautiful. All right, what we're going to talk about today is basically what does it take when you purchase a new hoist and get it and basically want to hang this thing up and get it to work. All right, so where does it go from box to production? All right, so first of all, going to get it. You get the box as I show on the screen, the picture on the screen. You've got a nice brand new box. We all know that when stuff gets shipped, UPS truck, whatever, it's not going to arrive like that. It does come in. It gets banged up a little bit, but the important part is you want to make sure that it's not banged up too bad, because obviously the contents on the inside, you want to make sure that the contents haven't been damaged. So a clue is if the outside's damaged pretty well, chances are you might have some internal damage as well. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen, because if it does, that's when you want to make a note of it and contact your distributor or your supplier, whoever you bought the hoist from, and let them know that. All right. After that, you're looking at taking the hoist out. All right. When you take the hoist out of the package, inspect it for any visible damage. Make sure that the markings are on the hoist as they appear on the paperwork as well. Make sure it's a 2-ton unit. That's what you ordered. 15 feet, 16 feet per minute, whichever it may be. Single reeve, double reeve. Those are things that you wanna make sure of. All right. So that you want to make sure that it matches your paperwork. Again, if you don't, let somebody know about these discrepancies. All right. So then what you're going to do is you're going to look at the hoist, installing it. All right. Before we do any kind of installation, you're going to want to make sure that you have the proper paperwork for it, the manual, basically. Make sure the manual matches the hoist that's in the box. All right, so follow the manufacturer's recommendations on how to hang this guy up. The suspension can be either a hook mount or it could be a lug mount. A hook mounted unit is going to be nothing more than simply a hook. All right, and you've got a hook that's going to fit into the eye of a trolley. All right, the second alternative is a lug. If that lug is there, it's a rigid suspension. That means it gets mounted directly to the trolley. There's very little room between the hoist and the trolley itself. We call that headroom. And in some cases, if you're in an area where you have low ceilings, maybe you're in a facility that's got 10 or 12 foot, 13 foot ceilings, you might be very concerned about headroom. Again, with a hook mount, you're going to lose headroom. So the headroom becomes longer, taller, however you want to call it. When it comes to a rigid lug, you save on headroom. The headroom becomes smaller and smaller. So your lifting distance becomes greater. So those are some of the things that you want to look at as far as how the unit gets mounted up to the trolley. All right, once the unit's in, your general inspection, your frequent inspection, your pre-use, daily inspection, however you want to call it, it's pretty much the same thing. You're going to want to take and look at the unit. Make sure, one, obviously it's marked all properly, capacity, any kind of electrical information is on there as well, single phase, 3-phase, lifting speeds, things like that are there. Then you're going to want to get into basically the physical inspection of the unit. And this is a visual inspection. I'm not going to tell you got to take covers off and look on the inside. It is strictly a visual inspection. Look at the unit, make sure it looks like it's one piece. Make sure there's nothing leaking from it. The covers are installed properly, that there's no wires hanging out of it. Say somebody put cover on, pinched a wire. It happens, okay? unfortunately, I'm guilty of doing that myself, and it will trip a breaker rather quickly. All right, so it does happen. We don't always catch that, but it will happen. Inspect the hook. Make sure the hook is in one piece. The chain. Make sure the chain is in one piece. There's no marks. There's no damage done to the chain or to the hooks. Along with the hooks, you got to have a latch. All right, per ASME B30.16, all hoist hooks must have latches. All right, the other thing that hook has to be able to do is swivel. All right, it needs to be able to swivel. The reason for the swiveling action is to make sure that the chain gets fed into the hoist at the proper direction. We don't want that chain to go into the hoist twisted. If it goes into the hoist twisted and it doesn't line up with the lift wheel on the inside, there could be some severe damage done to the chain as well as the lift wheel, which that can tally up into some fairly substantial dollars if you've got to take this unit down, take it apart, get rid of the chain, or replace the chain, I should say, and then also replacing the lift wheel. That's pretty much a complete teardown. Most lift wheels are pretty much in the middle of the hoist, so this is why you got to tear it all apart. The other thing you want to look at is the pennant control. Make sure that the pennant control is marked, and it is marked properly. And really, really important is you got to be able to read it. All right, if the controls are marked and you can't tell which way, which button is for up, which one is for down, yeah, that's a problem. All right, it needs to be marked properly. It needs to be visually legible as well. On here, I do have a chart that you can see up on the screen. It's a fairly short chart, and it's nothing more than these are the things that you want to look at when you're doing a frequent inspection. All right, all operators before they operate the equipment need to do this every day. That's why I call it, it's either a pre-use, daily, frequent, whatever you want to call it, it's pretty much the same thing. All right, the once that inspection is done and the technician that hung it, the maintenance person that hung it is satisfied that all that criteria has been met, you can turn it over to the production department and let them do what they have to do with it. They're going to start picking up molds, they're going to start picking up product, whatever it may be. But these are just some of the things that you have to be aware of when you're purchasing a hoist and before you put it into service. That frequent pre-use inspection is very, very important. I think that chain bags, hoists will come with chain containers, chain bags. Some of them are metal, some of them are like a plastic vinyl type material, hence the reason why they call it a bag. That's going to vary depending on the length of the lift that's in the unit. All right, there is basically a right way and a wrong way to attach these. You want to get them as close as possible to the hoist itself because they will limit how much, or I should say how high you can lift the load, because obviously you don't want the load to come in contact with the chain container, because then you run the risk of the chain actually spilling out and potentially hurting someone. So make sure that the chain containers are installed properly. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. I've seen companies that go ahead and they'll get an old coffee can or a paint can and they'll tie a piece of wire to the top of it and attach that to the hoist. And yeah, it's a container and it's holding chain, but it's not a chain container. All right, it's not a valid chain container. It'll trust me, if you get an inspector or an investigator that walks through your facility and sees that, he will let you know about it. All right. One thing I also forgot to mention about the hooks is obviously we have to have latches on them. The latches need to be there. They need to function properly as well. All hoists have to have latches. There's only one exception, and that is if the latch consists or presents a hazard to the operator. And I'm not talking about the operator maybe pinching his finger in with the latch and the hook. I'm talking about the use of the latch could somehow endanger or put into danger the operator. There is no, well, you know what, this this facility has this problem here, and that's why we take the latch off. That is going to be based on each individual incident. I cannot sit here and say that, well, if you run this type of shop, then you can take the latch off because it's okay. I can't do that. All right. It has to be judged at each individual incident where whatever you're doing has to be able to present a hazard to the operator. So again, and that's going to fall on the person or the company who owns the product. All right. And it can't be that you're taking the latch off because, well, time is money. I'm taking it off because I can save a couple of seconds here, and that couple of seconds translates into dollars and cents over time. And that's not going to work. All right. It has to be a safety hazard. All right. And like I said, that falls on the owner or the operator's shoulders to validate. So I think that's about it as far as I've got. Has anybody got any questions?
Yeah, Henry, this is Giselle. So of all the things you covered today, which are the ones that you see most frequently? You talked about latches, you talked about bags. I mean, which are the ones that are the biggest culprits for problems?
Chain containers. Again, like I said, people make their own. They'll get an old paint can, a coffee can, and they'll attach those up there. Not a good idea. Latches are another one. They'll get damaged and they don't realize, yeah, I understand it's there, but it doesn't satisfy the standard. Standard says it has to be there. It has to function properly. So those are usually the two biggies that I've seen. Probably a real close third, I'll say, is the pendant control. The pendant control gets damaged. They don't fix it or they don't get it replaced. The other one that I'll say that falls in along with the pendant control are the warnings. Usually especially on powered units, those warnings are usually right down by the pendant control. And those are usually the things that get damaged. People handle them with their gloves. Their gloves got solvents and maybe metal shavings in them. And over time, those labels will get somewhat distorted and the ink will kind of get rubbed off and you can't read the warnings anymore. I know I understand it's there, but I can't read it. It's not valid. It will need to be replaced.
Okay. So how often should hoists be load tested after initial use, Henry?
Whenever you repair, replace, or remove load-bearing components, that's when you got to do a load test. Some folks, I know there's some folks out there think that every year you do your annual inspection on a hoist, they feel that they should be doing a load test as well. I'm not going to stand here and say you can't. You can. You'll have to record it, but you must do a load test whenever you repair or replace load-bearing components. That is a must. The important thing, whenever you do a load test, you got to record it.
Yes, and we will, I was just going to see if there are any more questions. Anything else you'd like to add about anything that you covered today, about anything else people should pay attention to?
Well, paying attention to whatever people are lifting. Some of the things that I've seen people do, I'll say wrong, is they use the chain and the hook on the hoist as a sling. And what I mean by that is they'll actually take the hook and the chain and wrap it around a load rather than getting a sling to do that. Chain for hoists made a little bit differently than sling chain. All right, sling chain by standard needs to elongate 20% before it ruptures. Hoist chain, if you elongated hoist chain 5%, it'll never go over the pocket wheel, the lift wheel, because the lift wheel is basically a negative of the chain. So what you see, the chain links shape will fit into the lift wheel. So they're a mated pair. All right. So if you have any elongation happening to the hoist chain, it's not going to fit in the lift wheel. It'll start getting damaged. It'll start making some strange noises. It'll let you know that something's wrong. So that's one of the big things that I see people do many times is they'll use the chain sling or a chain on a hoist as a sling, which is a big no-no.
All right. Sounds good. I think that's, let's see. Okay, there's another question. Why does the hoist run in the wrong direction? Why does the hoist run in the wrong direction and the limit switch does not work at 230 volts?
Okay, three-phase.
Three-phase.
When you wire a three-phase hoist incorrectly, you reverse phase it. It's an easy fix. You basically take L1, 2, or 3 and swap it out. It's a simple fix. The reason why when you press the up button, the hoist will actually run in the down direction. The limits are running in the opposite direction. The reason for that is the signal goes from the pendant control. It goes through the limit switch first, and then it goes to the contactor. The limit switch, the reason why it goes to the limit switch first is it wants to see if the limit switch is closed or open. All right. Normally, limit switches in hoists are normally closed. So we have power going through them. When the travel nut comes in contact with the limit switch, it opens the limit switch, breaking the circuit, stopping the hoist going in that direction. So if you're running the unit backwards, the limit switch that is supposed to be working is not getting the proper signal. So that's why you will literally blow through the limit switches if you run a three-phase hoist in reverse. Reverse phase it and don't correct it. All right, the limit switches don't work properly.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Henry. We appreciate it.
Okay.
And thank you, AWRF, for the opportunity.
Yep. Thank you again.
Hey, Henry, we actually have one more question there.
Okay.
If a hoist has been in inventory for over a year, does it have to be load tested prior to selling it?
No, but I would recommend doing a frequent inspection. It's basically pull it out of the box, make sure that everything is still properly marked, and really what you're doing is you're really looking to see to make sure that none of the fluids have leaked out of it. If it is an oil-filled unit, making sure that none of the oil has seeped out of the gaskets. Even if it's grease, you want to make sure that all of the fluids and all of the lubricants are still intact. That's really pretty much what you're trying to achieve. You also want to make sure that there's no water damage. Some places, they'll put these in their warehouses, and they'll have a drip in the back roof, and they don't realize it, and the hoist can get saturated with water and basically could potentially contaminate or make the electrical components not function properly.
Okay, and does the same apply to a manual lever hoist?
I would do the same with a lever hoist too. Yes, sure. Making sure that none of the fluids and everything haven't leaked out of the unit, and also to make sure that it hasn't been contaminated by water or anything like that.
Okay. And one more has actually rolled in. Do you have to open up a hoist cover to physically look at it, look at all the components when doing an inspection?
On a periodic inspection, the standard says that if you have covers on there that are removable, in other words, basically being held in by fasteners, you are expected to remove those covers and look on the inside. Now, one of the reasons why you want to do that is on electric hoists, you want to make sure that the brakes are functioning properly. You want to inspect the brake discs. You don't have to go any further if you don't need to. All right, because you start off as a visual inspection. That's one of the myths that some people have out there is they look at a periodic inspection and say, well, that's a complete teardown. The standard doesn't say that. The standard does say is if it's got view ports, access ports, panels that can be removed, covers that can be removed, you're expected to remove them and look on the inside.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for the great presentation.